Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel for another customization video. Today we're going to be making a custom 110 scale Mustang for John Wick. We're also going to be making a custom John Wick Mezco style figure. You may have seen on my channel previously that I made a Mustang for John Wick, but it was 1/12 scale, so it only matched like a Mayfex size, and it was a 1967 fastback, which is similar but a little different than the 69 fastback, which is what they used in the actual film. So after a couple of years of trying to track one of these down, I finally found one at an affordable price, and it's a little dinged up. It's going to require some work, but I'm excited to make this into a more screen accurate version of John Wick's Mustang. Got a lot of work ahead on this one. Let's get it out in front of the camera and take a look at it. And we're also going to take a look at the supplies going into making the figure itself. So let's get to it. Okay, so this is a Radio Shack RC car. I don't know what year it was made. I do know that these are pretty rare, and I was literally searching for one online forever, and there was one that was in really good shape that was like 200 bucks, and I'm like, that's way too much, I'm not doing that. So I finally found this one for under $100 and decided to pull the trigger on it. I love the one I have in my collection, but you know, especially because it has a full interior that I customized myself. I painted every little detail of it, I added carpet and all that stuff, but in the end of the day, it's not the accurate version, and that's what I want the most. It was also not the same scale as the rest of my collection. It was a 1/12 scale vehicle, so it does run much smaller, because 110 scale vehicles, typically like RC vehicles, scale much better with like a Mezco figure, because while they are 1/12 scale, they run a bit large. They're not true 1/12 like the import size like SH Figure Arts and that kind of thing. Mayfex tends to be, I think, a little bit more true to 1/12 scale also. So this thing is a little banged up. You can see a lot of scratches in the roof here, so I'm gonna have to sand this down quite a bit to get a lot of that out. There are also decals all over it that are gonna have to come off. This is actually painted on and it's a bit raised, so I'm gonna have to sand this down too, because I don't want these flames to be visible. Unfortunately, there's a pretty big gouge on the hood scoop here. I don't think there's anything I can do about that, because you can see it's like got a raised texture to it. So I'll try to sand down some of the excess kind of little barbs on it, but you know, hopefully we can get it looking decent. Aside from that, it does sit a little bit high. You can see there's quite a bit of space in between here. Now, by no means should it be a lowrider, but I think if I can get the suspension down a little bit, because right now the car is just a little too tall for a figure. A buddy of mine had a 70 Mustang growing up. You know, I stood next to it a lot, and I'm about the same height as Keanu Reeves, so I remember where this thing came to on me height-wise, and I think it's just a little bit too tall right now. This is not something that it has in the film, so I'm going to see about taking this out. I think this is a separate piece that pops up into the window. If so, I'm going to remove this and just do like a flat piece of action figure packaging with some window tint on it. I'm going to see if I can fit the interior of the other Mustang that I made into this one. I doubt it's possible, because the inner workings of this thing go like all the way to the roof pretty much. A couple other things. The wheels are kind of weird. So these are accurate to this style of Mustang, except something about RC wheels are always very shallow. And so I think I'll paint this first circle here black up until this kind of crease right here, just to make it look more like it should. It also helped cover up some of these areas where these are kind of busted a little bit. You know, this is an old car, and like I said, these are hard to come by, and this was probably the best shape I was going to get one in for a reasonable price. First and foremost, I'm going to strip it, I'm going to sand it, and I'm going to see what's what on the inside. So next we have the figure itself. Now, if you have the Mezco John Wick, you know that it was a very disappointing release. Mezco really kind of pooped the bed on that one. So, you know, I repainted the head on mine, tried to make it work, but the time has come. I really want just like a good one. You know, John Wick is one of my favorite movies, and I've always wanted a more accurate depiction on my shelf. I've got the Mayfex one with a maniple head on it, and the maniple head is good, but it looks just like a shrink of the Hot Toys head, which I think is inaccurate. So I got a new head. This is from eBay seller Allgood777, which I frequently mention on the channel. This is just a much more accurate sculpt of John Wick, so I'm excited to paint this. The neck is a cast from Action Figure Customs. Got a Noda Toys slim body. The hands are from a Mezco John Wick. I also took the watch from the Mezco figure. Somebody was putting out these bodies. I think it was Mix Max Body Food. We're putting out bodies with like suits on them, and also there was like a turtleneck one that you could make for John Wick. I got a hold of a turtleneck one on eBay, and I'm gonna use the suit from it, but I don't want to use the turtleneck look. I am gonna use the white shirt is from GPS lot on eBay. I'm gonna go ahead and get to work on the car, and then probably while I'm painting and drawing that thing, I'm gonna paint the head on this guy. All right, so the first thing I took off was this bumper piece. An interesting thing, once I took this piece off, it was holding these little brackets in place. This almost looks like a hover conversion. I need these to stay in place. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try screwing these back in with some washers just to hold them down. The other thing is I've noticed that the suspension is tied to these little rods here. And so if this stays in place, if I can stick something in here, just like as a, you know, to kind of hold it in place, that will alleviate the lift issue in the front. Now the back is going to be a different story. I'll have to figure that out, but for now that's like half of it done, hopefully, so I'm excited about that. Taking another look at the chassis, so this washer thing that I tried doing ended up working really well. So well, in fact, that as I tightened the screw, this part just got flatter. So essentially, the tighter the screw went, the tighter the spring got, and now I have like this thing going as low as possible, which is great. In the back, what I ended up doing is it was a different setup, but if you look at when the shock is depressed, this pin comes up. So I just stuck some spacers in under the pin on both sides, and that gave it a lower profile. All right, got this all disassembled. It's super dirty, so I'm gonna have to clean it all up before I do anything else. Like you can see, there's like dust and spider webs and stuff in here. I'm removing the decals. There is some stickiness to it, so I'm gonna have to use either some rubbing alcohol or some Goo Gone to get that off. So yeah, now it's just gonna be some vigorous sanding. This is gonna be interesting. I don't wanna pick this up because it's got screws in it, but basically this piece plugs in. You can see the holes for it right here. I wanna maintain that look. So I think what I'm gonna do is try to cut these back, 5 of them here, just trim it here and put a piece of action figure packaging over it to make a window out of it. That way I can keep this piece and keep this visor. The visor is not going to be accurate, but I feel like it would look better to have one plus these brackets than to just have like these holes here. So I think that's going to be the compromise. Cutting through this might be a little challenging, but I'm going to do my best. I can't remember if I mentioned it is missing the rear view mirrors, so I do need to find a solution for that. Okay, so I've got the body painted on this thing, and this was a real ordeal. The paint that I had, I used this on my previous John Wick Mustang, and it worked great then. This time, I don't know if it had been sitting for too long, but the sort of dark, glittery stuff inside of it, the pigment, I don't know, whatever it is, it was maybe not mixed well enough, even though I shook it for a really long time. So it would come out like black pretty much, and it would just all of a sudden there'd just be a black splotch on this thing. So I had to paint this thing like over and over again, trying to get it right. And I finally got a pretty even coat. You will see some inconsistencies like up here. Some of that is actually because there's like a glossy sort of agent to this paint, and the gloss part didn't go on very evenly. So you can see some spots where it catches more reflection than others. So my hope is that when I hit this with a clear coat, that will even all this stuff out. So next up, I need to mask this off to do some racing stripes. So it's got 2 in the front, 2 in the back. They don't actually go over the roof, I realized, which seems kind of weird to me, and I decided I'm just gonna leave this rear visor thing as is. I don't think it's a big enough difference to painstakingly like cut that plastic and risk screwing up the one piece I have to make a back window. So I'm just gonna do that part as it is. And then I need to figure out a rear view mirror situation as well. Okay, I got the car all taped up and is ready for paint on the racing stripes. Now, something I'm gonna try that I just learned about recently is, you know how if you mask something off like this, you spray it, you peel the paint off, and then you get bleed through. And it's always like, I taped it so carefully, why is it doing that, right? Well, what I learned is if you spray it again with the same color that's underneath, that color will be the one that bleeds through. And then you spray it with the color you actually want over the top of that, and because all the bleed through has already occurred, you're left with clean lines. So I'm gonna try that. Now, I can't do it with the color I've already used because this paint is just too messed up. So what I'm gonna do instead is hit it with some clear coat. Okay, I got the wheels done. And this actually was pretty easy. I was worried it was gonna be very difficult. But basically I just took flat brush and then I just sort of turned it like that. And then I took a toothpick and just kind of scraped out the gutter piece or whatever. And that got a pretty clean line. So now, moment of truth. This thing reeks to high heaven of paint fumes. We're gonna see if this striping trick worked here. Like a charm, baby. Look at that. That worked really well. Oh yeah, nice and clean. All right. Well, very, very happy to know that that works well. So here I'm doing a little bit of detailing work. I'm painting some black on the windshield wipers, and then I'm also using the Molotow chrome pen to do the chrome highlights on the door handles, the door locks, the window trim. This pen is really, really great. I highly recommend it. I'll put a link in the description below where you can find a pack of them on Amazon. All right, so all the body work is done. I did a bunch of stuff here. I chromed out the marker light bezels. I did chrome work along the trim pieces here. I touched up some of the chrome on the bumper and stuff. It's a little scratched up because it is an RC car that was used. So the other thing that I did is I added these rear view mirrors to it. Now, the mirrors on this car would have been more of a modern style where it's the same color as the car paint. But I had these on a Bratz car that I got as like a parts car, and they fit perfectly into the little slots that were in there. So I just went ahead and did that. I think it looks pretty cool. It matches the chrome, and it saved me a lot of time and work. So yeah, pretty happy with it. I also hit the car with a pretty thick gloss coat to try to unify the paint job, and that helped quite a bit. I've got the chassis airing out because I put some spray fixative on the wheels that I painted so that that paint doesn't get scratched up. I'm gonna go grab that, reattach that to the body, and then we're gonna take a look at the final result. All right, so here's my finished John Wick custom figure as well as the Mustang. Over the moon with how this turned out. You know, I mentioned this before, but John Wick was the first figure that I ever customized. And it was a much more rudimentary version than what is sitting right here right now. I don't always like to redo things or go back and do stuff I've already done. That's why, like, when I make a figure and people go, oh, could you make me one? I generally say no, because I kind of already climbed that mountain and I want to look toward the next thing. But the first John Wick is one of my favorite movies, and I really wanted to have like a strong representation of it on my shelf. I also really love Mustangs, especially the 69 70 body styles. One of my best friends growing up had a 70, which is pretty much the same body style as this one, and we used to roll around in that all the time thinking we were cool. So, you know, this particular body style, it's always been my favorite. It has a special place in my heart. And I mentioned that I used a matte spray on the wheels. I'm really happy with how that looks. They were this very like fake chrome look before. By using a matte spray, it kind of dulled them out a little bit, and so it made them a little more believable and a little more realistic. Now, this Mustang isn't 100% accurate to John Wick. The one in the movie has like a little kind of vent scoop thing right here. It's got a Mustang emblem right there. And it also doesn't have the visor on the back. You know, a few other subtle details, but all in all, this is a great representation of the vehicle and the character to have, and I'm pretty stoked on it, so. All right, we just wanted to pop in real quick because I recorded the whole video and realized I forgot to put on the hood clips, so. Now, I actually reused these from the old Mustang build. These were pieces from a model that I had, like a model kit. I have actually a 67 Mustang, but it was like a 1/124 scale, a little tiny one. I don't know what these pieces were, but they were the perfect size for hood clips. And then this is just jewelry wire that I tucked in under the hood. So this will probably cut back to the rest of the video where I didn't have them on, but I wanted to make sure that I cut in real quick and added these. Now, we've had a bit of a look at the car already, but I do want to get in and take a closer look at the figure. So let's punch in and take a closer look at him. So there's the finished John Wick figure. I have him posed up like he's reloading the gun. Pretty happy with the paint on this guy. Keanu Reeves has a very specific beard pattern, so you really got to get that right to get the look of John Wick correct. Yeah, paint job was pretty straightforward. You know, add the little cuts and whatnot. And I'm just stoked to have the John Wick in this scale that looks like him, unlike the Mezco figure that we got that I think most people were pretty disappointed with. I would love like a dark gray suit like he has in the spa, like nightclub spa scene when he's at that like bathhouse in the first movie. So I'm gonna keep an eye out for that, but until then, he's got a black one. These shoes are not great. Like they have a real curve to them, so I had to use sticky tack on the bottom of the shoes just to get them to stand up, because they do want to like, they're almost like a rocking chair leg, the way that these are. So a little difficult. I'll probably swap the shoes out. I did put socks on him too. If you watch some of my reviews, you know I like to do a sock check. So definitely gave him some socks. I just had some stretchy black material left over from some other builds, so I just made little socks out of them. Just looped it around his shin and glued it. Yeah, now if I want to bend his legs and it rides up, he's got socks on. The cool thing about this head sculpt too is it works on the Mezco John Wick figure, so let's do a swap and take a look at that. Now I'd want to mess with this a little bit to get the suit to lay right. That's part of the problem with the Mezco John Wick, is the shoulders have this weird slope to them, and then they padded the suit. Naturally I took the padding out, as did most of us I think, and obviously he's missing his hands, but I mean this looks really good on there too. So it is nice to have the alternate suit if I want. You know, I can just pop this head on a John Wick body. And I like this suit. I like the blue on black. Every John Wick figure pretty much has this, you know, the Hot Toys one, the upcoming Maniple one. It's got the John Wick 2 blue shirt, black 3-piece suit. And I really like that just kind of simple black and white suit. So that's what I'm going to keep him in. And just for fun, let's take a look at the Mezco John Wick next to my custom. And it really is just night and day. I mean, they absolutely bungled this figure with Mezco. Like, you know, no disrespect, I've been a fan of what Mezco does. I think the tailoring on this suit is really nice, apart from the sloping shoulder deal and the weird pads they put in. But I mean, the actual soft goods themselves are pretty incredible. All of the accessories are wonderful. I think the paint apps are good. They're just inaccurate, but I mean, it's well painted. It's just not correct in terms of the way the character looks. Yeah, I just thought that'd be fun to do a little side-by-side comparison. And for another comparison's sake, this is a John Wick head that I attempted to correct by doing some repainting. I made the beard a little bit darker. I did a little bit of work to the eyes, and then I also brought the hairline down a little bit with some epoxy clay and some paint. So, but yeah, I mean, you can tell there's a difference. I repainted his eyebrows too. So while this does look more like John Wick, there's just not really much comparison to a more accurate head sculpt. So let's take one more look at the figure and the car. We'll turn around here. Yeah, real stoked on this. Very happy. You know, I do a lot of videos of custom builds of vehicles for my action figures on this channel. And as I've mentioned before, it's pretty much the centerpiece of my collection is like characters and the vehicles that go with them. And this is what started it all. I really wanted a Mustang for John Wick. Like, I would just search the internet endlessly to try to find a scale Mustang that would go with this John Wick. And that was when I first realized that like nobody makes cars for 1/12 scale figures, at least not in a plurality like they should. But now I finally have one that is a Mezco scale that goes with my brand new soft goods John Wick figure. So I'm really hyped on this. Very excited, and I'm glad I got to share it with all of you. All right, my friends, that is going to do it for this video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. You know, that helps people find the content. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, I invite you to click subscribe and join me, because I do this kind of stuff on the channel very regularly. Please stay tuned for a brief trailer for my graphic novel Count. It's a revenge story that was very much inspired by my love of John Wick. I love the genre of revenge, and I wanted to do one, and I thought, what's like the ultimate revenge story? And it's got to be the Count of Monte Cristo. And so I said, you know what? What if the Count of Monte Cristo had dope vehicles and androids and impossible swords and cool action? And that's what I made. So If that sounds interesting to you, there's a link in the description below. I'd love for you to check it out. I'm very, very proud of it. If you have any questions about anything in this video, any of the methods I used, or anything I didn't show, drop them in the comments below. I will happily get back to you. I never leave people hanging. I can't stand when people don't answer questions, so I try to be very good about that. So that's going to wrap up this one. Until next time, keep your head on swivel.